Rise and grind, multifamily friends, welcome to the Morning Perks podcast, where bold conversations are brewed fresh and every episode is rich, energizing, and guaranteed to wake up your commute. Just like your favorite cup of coffee, we keep it smooth, strong, and full of flavor, serving up insights you'll want to sip on long after the last drop. This podcast is the perfect blend for getting to know the people behind the progress at the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association. From industry trailblazers to rising stars, we're spilling the beans on the stories, experiences, and ideas of those making a real impact in the multifamily world. So grab your mug, hit download, and press play on your way to work. Whether you're stuck in traffic or cruising through your morning routine, Morning Perks is your daily dose of connection, inspiration, and industry buzz. No extra cream required. Let's go.
I think so.
We're ready.
Good morning and welcome to the Morning Perks podcast. I'm your podcast host, Bill Clements. I'm with Liz Newkirk. Liz Newkirk is officially the Director of Brand Advancement for Loebsack and Brown Leavitt. Everybody knows Liz Newkirk. Everybody also knows Jay Rawls. With Salto, he is the Residential Industry Lead for North America. Folks, welcome.
Thank you.
Great
You
to be here.
guys have any questions about me on the box?
I was a little curious as to why, but I know
It's-
that you're also innovative. So I just kind of,
Well, I think what's interesting
It's-
is it says accent chair on the side of the box.
and there's a
Accent chair.
picture of the chair on the box.
So the two of you are in comfortable, brand new studio orange chairs.
These are nice.
And I don't even get a chair. I just get a chair in a box. Here's a story on the chair in the box. The chair in the box is not the right chair. The chair is going to go away and the box is going to go away.
Okay.
But we're going to use the chair in the box because I refuse not to use the chair in the box.
I think
Okay.
it's fair.
Okay.
I mean, this is a new podcast room. You know,
Yeah.
we can
Right?
run however.
Is-
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. We have a sponsor and I want to properly plug the sponsor in 1 second.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the studio's coming along.
It's very nice.
Do you like
I
it?
like
I do like the hashtag L&B orange. So I might have to take some of the orange,
Yeah.
but you know, I do like this.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
cool.
I like
Right.
it. It's just so nice to have windows and be able to sit
Yeah.
here and
We have
be in a more
refreshments.
comfortable room.
You do. We had some earlier. I was able to get a nice little water. So
Yeah.
great. I feel refreshed. So thank you very much.
Mine too. I'm ready.
All right, let's
Ready
talk
for the
about
heat.
let's talk about our fantastic sponsor for 1 second. I'm going to
Yeah.
read. It's the right way to do it. The Greater Charlotte Apartment Association Morning Perks podcast is presented by Valley Living. They are the nation's leading resident experience and property services provider for the multifamily industry. Valley Living partners with operators to reduce operational pressure, improve resident satisfaction, and deliver consistent day-to-day service across communities while also providing the regulatory expertise needed to navigate an increasingly complex operating environment.
Mm.
At their core of service is doorstep waste and recycle collection, supported by a growing suite of property services designed to scale with client needs. Valley Living. It starts at the door. So can we get a nice little kudos for Valley Living?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you
So
so
much.
much, Valley
Thank you,
Living.
Valley Living.
It is
I
fantastic.
appreciate
So the conversation today, I'll just be open and honest out of the gate. I
Mhm.
know the least about of the three of us in the room.
There.
But it's a timely topic. We brought you guys in because you know a lot about it. You've got experience with it. And
Mhm.
you can kind of share with the viewers on what it's about, how we navigate it, and how we move beyond it, and sort of don't get caught up in a trap that it causes our properties and property management companies to suffer because of it.
Almost definitely.
And that is fraud.
Yes.
And I think specifically for the topic of today, and we can broaden out, and I think you both have great experience with it, and we can just begin to talk about it.
Mhm.
But fraud as it relates specifically to the application process,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's a really tricky subject. And it's mainly because we were having this conversation, you know, just kind of organically. And it just came up where we were talking about, you know, social media, especially with TikTok and how it has actually been a really big space for fraud. As someone who, of course, is on the medias, I was just scrolling through TikTok one day
Mhm.
and I saw this young lady who was talking about a property. And of course, being in the industry, as long as I have, like, you have friends, that are managing these properties, some of the regional managers, some of the marketers. And so you kind of take it a little personally when
Mhm.
somebody
Yeah.
mentions and,
It
one of the properties or a property management company you're familiar with. And she was just like, so this is how you can create a fraudulent application to get specifically at said property. And I was like, excuse me, what? Like,
Oh,
I knew that it
it's
exists, but I
yeah.
didn't know that social media specifically was going to be a platform for this space and almost like an encourager,
Mhm.
for it to exist. And it has completely just like evolved. And
Yeah.
I'm actually a little terrified because it directly correlates to brand reputation, organizational reputation, even safety.
Mhm.
Uh, it
Yeah.
directly impacts your NOI. It directly impacts your occupancy and your bottom line.
So
And I know you have
yeah.
a lot of
Oh,
experience with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
much. Yeah. You mentioned the social media
Hmm.
aspect of it, and it's something, when you said that, I looked at my phone screenshots. I looked
Actually,
at right,
right.
and I saw where it screenshotted
Hmm.
some fraudulent apartment approval packages that were being
Hmm.
sold on Facebook Marketplace, and
Hmm.
this was wow. I look back at the date, and it was 2022, and at that time, I was told that they were out there. I'm going to look for them. I screenshotted some to share with our
Hmm.
property management team at the time, and then I went back on to say, like, are these still out there on
Yep.
Mhm.
Facebook Marketplace? And sure enough, they are. And it's really quite astounding. I mean, you've got, you know, pricing and services listed,
Hmm.
for multiple folks out there on Facebook Marketplace here in the Charlotte area
Yeah.
who are
Hmm.
selling these apartment approval packages,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they have their fees listed, their Facebook profile is
Yep.
there, it's
Yep.
out there, people can see who they are, who they're
They're
saying they
not
are.
hiding it, Jay.
They're
Like,
not.
I think that was the part that was most astounding to me. It's like when I was on site and became a regional, marketing director, it was like you knew that it existed,
Mm.
especially on certain social media platforms. At the time, I'm going to age myself here. Craigslist, right?
Oh
Remember
yeah.
those days?
Oh
And
yeah.
so it was just like, you knew that they were there because you could
Mhm.
find them, but you did not know that it was a full, what it is now, peer-to-peer ecosystem.
Yeah.
Like hack culture, I think, like when they did a little bit of research and gathering some data on it, and of course, naturally, data nerd, I was going to gather some information too.
Mm.
They were saying that how culture is now like a $46.2 billion
Wow.
industry. So when you talk about like the amount of people that are literally like having a lifestyle off of creating these packages,
Mhm.
you can literally contact them on Instagram, you can literally contact them on TikTok, and they will say, yes, I provide this service. And they even have like answering services now. So, if you call to verify someone's
Wow.
employment, you have someone that's like, oh, yes, like such and such work here and I can verify. And now with the age of AI, now you have like the automated systems that you can create the fraudulent paycheck stubs, you can create the W-2s, you can create the phone answering service. And it's almost like, what do you do? Like,
Mm.
how do you combat this? And I think the first thing is really just being aware. How you said
Mhm.
that you came into it
Right.
on social media,
Right.
but also as somebody being on site, I know that you have experience with that as well,
Yeah.
Jay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's 100%. You have to be aware. And it's hard. I think the first time I saw this, truthfully,
Mhm.
the scale that it is, or the, sort of similar to the way it is
Mm,
now, was into 2020, early 21.
mhm.
You know, it was brought to my attention. We, found out as a company, as a property management company, where my role was overseeing operations and
Yeah.
technology. I'm the
Yeah.
systems administrator, so all of
Mhm.
Right.
our tech systems and our policy and process. So
Mhm.
screening, big is a big piece of that.
Right.
So, I'm doing this, and it comes to our attention, and I talk to others in the industry who have become aware that, there are folks out there applying,
Mhm.
with false identities.
Yeah.
And this was, I don't know how it was tied to the pandemic. It doesn't quite make sense to me
Mhm.
why it
Mhm.
would be
Mhm.
tied to the timing of the pandemic, but
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
seems like it was. That's kind of
Mhm.
when everything picked up,
Oh,
right? I
most
mean,
definitely. I saw
yeah,
more on social media during the
yeah,
pandemic. And I guess also part of the reason why was that maybe it always exists, but because
yeah,
we really didn't have much else to do.
Yeah.
Right.
We just
Maybe we
became
started
more like
looking.
aware, like we were scrolling through social media,
Right.
anyway. And that was the first time as
Yeah.
well where I was just like, what do you mean? Like you can
Yeah.
get like a
Yeah.
kit, like a
Right.
legit
Right.
kit. It's like, and it's not an obscene amount of money. Like to be clear, it's not
It's like
like
$600.
maybe I've seen
Yeah.
it like $300 to
Yeah.
$600 where it's just
Mhm.
like you give me $300 to $600 and you can choose a package behind, the lower tier to the upper tier,
Yeah.
depending on what you're looking for. And they will specifically say, oh, if you have an eviction, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't
Like
worry.
we will take care of you with these specific
Yeah.
curated packages.
It's really interesting. At that time, this was kind of coming to my attention, was coming to a lot of our attention. I
Yeah.
remember talking at the time to Ellie Norton. She was at Pegasus and she was having
Yeah.
issues with it. And I was like, what are you
Mhm.
guys doing?
Mhm.
But so just, I started to reach out to folks, in the industry who were also kind of overseeing screening
Mhm.
policies of their company. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what are you guys doing?
Mhm.
And I think, all of us were seeing the same thing. And it wasn't just, B and C class properties. It was class A deals, where we're seeing, folks who aren't who they say they are. And we're seeing
Right.
sort of little, going through files, weird things with certain applications, mostly with
Right.
proof of income, but ID also, and, potentially fake social security numbers.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
I don't even
Yeah.
But you guys are
were-
telling me this isn't dark web stuff. This is right out there.
No.
This is
blatant.
on social media. This is how you put on your makeup.
Oh
This
yeah.
is how you change a oil in a car. It's that.
Yes.
It's
yes.
out there.
it is literally like that black and white where they break it down to you and they show you like what it is that you can do. And I think the thing that was baffling to me was that now they outright name the properties.
Yeah.
Like now there'll be like, oh well, this organization like don't mess with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they'll like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. Like you're not even gonna, and there's nothing that I can do about it.
Yeah,
Like they're that
yeah.
good. And partially like because of people like you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's some other property management companies where they're like, oh, this one's easy, this one's simple. If you go there, then make sure you ask for this person, and it's like
Mhm.
it is a entire ecosystem now. And
Yeah.
it is literally like, just like you said, like, well, this is a makeup tutorial and this is how you can put on your blush. Which we know there's a whole blush thing on the TikToks right now.
Yeah.
Look
That's-
that up later. But it's just like,
Yeah.
they're this like, this is how you put it on your blush. It's like,
Yeah.
this is how you commit fraud.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super blatant. And it's evolved quite a bit. It's changed quite a bit. Looking at it back in early 2021, it was evident that sometimes folks were just kind of going and taking a PDF of a pay stub
Yeah.
and taking a salary of,
Mhm.
let's call it $20,000 a year and adding an extra zero to make
Yeah.
it $200,000. So just kind of like basic editing of PDFs. There was, just basic changing the name on the top of a bank statement,
Right.
to have it reflect your name versus your friend's name, however you bought it
Right.
from. So there was basic stuff like that, which was kind of, hard to detect at
Mhm.
that time, but
Mhm.
became easy to detect. So it's really evolved as folks are starting to catch on and get a little
Yes.
bit smarter and
Yes.
technology's evolved. Like
Mhm.
the fraud has evolved too. And
Oh,
that's
yes.
what's so interesting about it.
Oh, yes. Oh,
you know,
yes.
we just, I think all of us back then were like, what do we do about this? Like,
Mhm.
this is obviously a
Mhm.
huge problem. So
What do you do if you're a management company that knows that this is probably a problem for you? Like, what's the first step? I mean, beyond acknowledging and understanding that it's happening right in front of you, what's the very next step that they should begin to embark on?
well, I mean, I'll tell you what, at that time, I'm a technology guy, software guy, right? And I was overseeing our systems and we had a screening in place, just
Yeah.
kind of your traditional credit criminal screening. And so my head was thinking, well, there's got to be some way to solve this with technology.
Right.
Let me see what's out there. And this was early 21. And so I kind of go on a hunt, just try to figure out, what technology is out there to solve for this. And there were sort of two groups at the time. There's one called a Proof Shield out of Atlanta that really kind of handles the whole application process, kind of an expensive process. And there was Snap, which was kind of just, still in, I guess, startup stage, very much so. Didn't have a lot of employees. They were the only ones doing it. Now it's really kind of become this huge sort of technology sector in our industry. But at that time, it still wasn't, right?
Yeah. Right.
But I did end up saying to Snap, let's just try it out on a few properties,
Right.
and where you guys are sort of screening the income proof that comes in from all of our applicants. And let's just see how it works. And sure enough, they started to ping certain applications. And it was fascinating because I would look at some of these, and this was early 21 even.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at some of these, I'm like, they're going to have to tell me that this works. Like, because I'm looking at these things and I'm like,
There's
this
no
looks
way
like a
that's
real
fake.
bank statement. This looks
Right,
like real
right,
pay stuff.
right.
There's no way this is fake.
Right.
So I was like, you guys, I want to trust you guys. But there's this type of technology has never existed. So how do I, like, you're going to, and look, we don't usually share, we don't want people to kind of catch on.
Right,
I don't want
right.
to share this with somebody who gets, shares it with the wrong person. But I'm like, you guys are going to have to tell me on a few. Like, you're going to tell me, what about this? Like, did someone edit the font? So at that time, they had a way to, like, an AI methodology to sort of screen a bank statement and a pay stub. That's all that could be done at that time.
Right.
Early 21. And it could say, like, has the metadata been edited on this PDF document?
Everything has a fingerprint.
Yes.
Everything has a
So it's
fingerprint.
like hidden in the metadata, whether or not it's been edited. And they have in their database, payroll providers and banks that they, are aware of in sort of the style of their statements. So they can see, like, well, this isn't the normal font for this. They kind of use proprietary fonts, I think, usually. So there's just a slight variation if you're using sort of an Adobe font.
Right.
So they would be willing to tell me at that time, this name was changed, there was text edits in this area, or the font style doesn't match our known font style for a Wells Fargo bank statement. So like, okay, like, I'm starting to be able to trust this, right? They said, well, your applicants can call us. So that was what existed then. And, over time, it's the fraud has evolved because those, started to be caught.
Yes.
Right. Well, fraud's not going to stop.
No.
When the technology to stop the fraud evolves, fraud's going to adapt and move forward again. Fraud's going to do what fraud does.
I mean, it's kind of like the world of AI right now. Like, AI is going to work on both courts, right? It allows for us to be able to catch fraud in an innovative way that we probably wouldn't have been able to do so before. Like you said, like, it's essentially like metadata, or a fancy word for like a fingerprint, that allows for these AI systems to be able to catch what it is that they're doing a lot sooner, that would not be visible to the naked eye. Because I'm with you. It's like some of these photographs and, the paycheck stubs and the bank statements and the job, offer letters. I mean, they do it with veterans, all the time, where they're like, oh, yeah, I got a letter from, for deployment. It's like, well, they use it for that as well. And it's very difficult for you to be able to tell, but because the United States government and these institutions put, watermarks and different things on the back of their, content and copies in PDF, it allows for AI systems to be able to catch it. But it also allows for them to be able to utilize AI in an innovative way for them to find a way to get past it. And when we were talking about solutions, one of the first things I was thinking of was AI agents. We don't really know what or how AI is going to evolve over time. A lot of us are relatively new, but to a lot of people that are in the world of marketing, I'm like, if you don't know, if you don't understand, especially like how to utilize prompts and how to be able to create an AI agent, that is one of the things that you can utilize to really help you understand, catch the information, and maybe even build in connection with some of these companies that will allow for it to be able to be flagged sooner than later, because we all know what the cost is when somebody gets past the system and they actually give you, when they actually occupy the space, because now you have a false sense of occupancy, which directly impacts your NOI. We all know that. And now on top of it, you also have bad debt. We know that 46% of these persons that, incorporate in fraud, they end up damaging the property. So not only do you have like a false sense of occupancy, you also got bad debt, and you also got property damage,
Secondary
and you have to turn it over. So it's like, there's all of these things that come with, persons that are deciding to participate in this act. And I don't think that we're unaware that times are hard, right? We are very well aware of the economic situations that people are in, but it's like, how can we find, solutions to housing so that way people, at least good people, are not having to revert to this in order for them to get housing? It definitely doesn't. It definitely doesn't, because it does nothing but really impact you in a negative way, where it's like, now you can't get housing anywhere because you decided to participate in this. And now you also have ruined your credit. and your ability to be able to find housing.
Yeah,
Because
It's
fraud
unfortunate.
creates expense on the owner side,
Oh,
on
most
the management
definitely.
oh
side,
yeah,
and those costs have to be applied.
When I was researching this, I was curious to see like what was the actual dollar amount for write-offs.
Mhm.
And you will not believe this, Bill. It's 4.2 million. $4.2 million dollars
And
in
write-offs.
write-offs to bad debt. And this is specifically in the fraud category.
yeah.
This is not just bad debts as a whole. This
Mhm.
is like specifically due to fraud. And so it's really important for marketers to create social media and strategic campaigns that engage in social listening, so that way if their property is flagged on some of these social media platforms, it comes up, and like we said earlier, now you're aware.
Yeah.
At first, like a lot of property management companies aren't even aware that this exists.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like you can't combat the unknown, right?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
only combat the known.
But if you use fraud detection, I think most of them will most of the companies that you can use will offer their
Right.
logo or some sort of, you maybe can combine that on your website with, something that indicates that you screen. It's kind of like the ID verification.
Yeah, most
I've never
definitely.
witnessed a lot of IDs being denied.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
happens for sure,
Mhm.
but like it's more of a deterrent, I think, than
Mhm.
anything else. And I think
Mhm.
that's, we can try to deter it, but
Yeah.
it's hard to put in total value to it. When
Right.
it's astounding when you look at certain properties. Like you can look at individual properties or
Mhm.
individual areas. Atlanta's really bad for fraud,
It is.
unfortunately. And you look
It
at properties there,
is.
and there are properties there where, screening providers will tell you 20, 30,
Mm.
upwards of 30% of applicants,
Mhm.
30% of all applicants at that property are fraudulent.
Wow.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
see it in lease ups a lot. People think
Mhm.
they can get in, get a couple months free, and then never pay. So, I mean, that's really it, it's astounding when you think about a
Right.
quarter of
Yeah.
your applicants at a
Right.
property could be fraud. And it's hard as an operator because you're so blown away by that, and you want to
Right.
try to mitigate. Because I mean, even if a small percentage of those
Yeah.
turn into bad debt,
Correct.
it's still super impactful.
Oh, most
Property, but it's
definitely.
just you know let's call it 25% because not
Mhm.
everyone
Mhm.
will never pay. Like some
Mhm.
people
Yeah.
are
Mhm.
doing this just because they have really bad credit from the past,
Yes.
or they, some of them are engaged in illegal activities, so
Mhm.
they don't make
Mhm.
money in ways that are verifiable,
Mm.
but they do potentially make a lot of money. So
Mhm.
so it's really hard to say, oh, because like we caught 28% of our applicants, like this would
Right.
have
Right.
contributed to this amount of bad debt because it's not
Right.
necessarily as cut and dry as that.
Right. Right.
And you have to think as an operator, how do I make my approval process, my screening process?
Mhm.
Because still, even at 25%, you still have 75%,
Correct. It's like
you know?
if you market, I mean, it's kind of like, having the police as soon as you drive into your property, right? It's
Mhm.
like if you market that we are like a verified,
Yeah.
organization, or we're verified, property management company, that you have to go through these like loopholes. And I will tell you, like, as someone who used to live on site and all of the things it is that I would have to do, like my friends would be like, why do I have to like upload my ID and then use my phone to turn my head so that way they can see that it's me, and it's like you have to upload and then you have to connect it to your bank. It's like, well, that's because fraud has gotten so good
It's
now.
amazing.
And, it's almost like you have to put in these deterrents so that way, people don't waste their time, leasing agents, waste their time, owner operators waste their time on people that do not and probably will not pay, because
Right.
it also definitely impacts your
Oh, yeah,
eviction
think about the
process
amount of
too.
time, if 25% or even 50,
Yeah,
of your applicants are
Yeah.
fraud. I mean, how much extra time you're having to get
that's a lot of
showings. You're having to
time.
give it
Yeah,
a tour of these units. You're having to try to process the
yeah,
apps until you get to the point where hopefully you catch it, right?
One
most
of the things
definitely.
that you both talked about, and I want you to talk a little bit more about it if you don't mind, it's
Mhm,
fascinating, and that is the difference between me taking a piece of paper here with a pen
mm,
and writing my name on it, and
mhm,
that is that. That's my
mhm,
Yeah.
hand and a
mhm,
pen
Yeah.
and a
mhm,
piece of paper, versus a digital fingerprint.
mm,
So whenever you build anything like digitally, there's markings that software and professionals can see that that's
mhm,
been built,
mhm,
that pieces have been built,
mhm.
and it's not built as a whole that was appropriately made from a company. So there are ways, right,
Yeah.
digitally in the foot and the fingerprint,
Mhm.
where you can see that it's fraudulent.
It is essentially like the DNA. It's
Hmm.
the DNA that's being embedded and being ingrained. It's like if you have something like when you're creating a piece of content on Canva, for
Yeah.
instance, and let's say you utilize part of their new updated AI software, you can almost tell to some degree by the pixelation. You can almost tell by the way that it looks. You can almost tell like the way that it fits inside of, social media. You get to a point where you're able to like visually recognize it. But right off the bat, like I remember when Sora first came out, could not tell. Like now you see, and AI just recently updated their user interface where they've integrated AI into their system. So you can literally be on your phone and generate an AI image if you want to. And it's gotten so seamless and smooth, you almost cannot tell the difference.
Right.
And that's why it's so important for you to partner with your supplier partners like you did, Jay, to be able to catch this because doing it with the naked eye is very, very slim. You're
Right.
not going to be able to see that DNA because now it's down to a molecular level.
Yeah, and there's you're right. I mean, it's gotten to where it's really hard to identify it now
Yeah.
with the naked eye, but it's in the metadata. So if someone's editing a pay stub, if they're editing a bank statement,
Right.
it's there. But it's evolved. There's so many different layers to it, right? You've got your pay stub, bank statement type editing fraud, right? And then you have your folks who are out there, presenting CPN numbers. And there are folks on Facebook Marketplace, selling these packages
Yep.
who actually will write a blurb about how
Yeah.
you're entitled
Yeah.
to
Wow.
the CPN number. Like you deserve a fresh start. This is designed for you.
I'm
Like,
helping you.
yeah. So it's like that this is fully within the law.
Yeah.
Like you're acting. This is what you should be doing.
Well, that website told me it was, or that page told me it was okay to do this.
Almost
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
And I mean, their marketing position is definitely like, well, you deserve, to have like
right.
fair, you deserve to have this
Yeah.
skyline, and you deserve to have this. Let me help you get to that.
Yeah,
you
and I
know?
saw what the
Wow.
person had who posted that. I mean, they're like 4.9 star reviews on
Yes.
Facebook Marketplace. They're obviously
Yes.
doing a lot of this business, right?
Mhm.
So I've seen it. So you've got those layers. You've got identity fraud, these people presenting fake IDs,
Yes.
and now you have folks, these companies that are selling these apartment approval packages are not only selling people, the fake income, but they're also selling them in some cases the ability to have that verified.
Yeah.
So they're on the other end of the phone answering when
Mhm.
the listing agent calls to verify. They're selling sometimes rental verification, same thing. They're on the other end of the phone answering. They got
Yeah.
someone who does that.
Mhm.
And then they're selling fake social security cards.
Yes.
So they're actually selling now matching fake social security cards to the number that they give you,
Wow.
this credit privacy number.
A lot of the
CPN
times, the
number.
two entities, the two companies are like all working together.
Yeah.
And they're creating these companies. I mean, they're legit companies,
Yeah.
right? But they're
There's an
legit
underground
companies that
market.
participate in fraud.
Underground market, and the new thing that it kind of came to light I want to say a year and a half ago, maybe. It's called inception fraud.
Yes.
Where so if you maybe heard about that, that's what they dubbed it, and it's basically where folks are going out and creating fake companies,
Yeah.
like an LLC,
Yeah.
and they're signing for payroll software.
Yeah.
Gusto is a big one. Gusto's like red flag,
Yeah.
because they're doing like a free trial. You get like a free 60-day trial, 90-day
Right.
trial of Gusto for your new LLC that you've created. And you're actually able to issue legitimate pay stubs, not edited, but legitimate pay stubs from a payroll software system, a startup called Gusto and some others. And you're able to actually provide these to your customers on the black market.
Yep.
And these actually are proclaimed to pass a lot of these, AI approval systems.
Yep.
So now they're having to these AI systems are having to keep up with these names and track this inception fraud and try to, just sort of have their AI databases learn how that's working. So it's like, okay, Gusto, well, this raises a little red flag. Let me go a little deeper. Well,
Right.
okay, well, is this a company that we've seen before across, the million units we serve? So it's gotten a lot more complex.
It's so
in that
sophisticated
regard.
now. It's so sophisticated now,
And I
especially when
always-
you're talking about Atlanta. Yeah.
It's tough because I've always, on the operator side, want for it to be as foolproof as possible. I'm like, I want for someone to apply and then for there to be no chance, like I can have it rock solid. So,
Yeah.
by the time it hits our system, we know that nothing, there's no fraud in this application. And it's still, I think, despite how much it's evolved a lot. Technology's evolved with it, but there's still certain things that I think involve the human. Like, I don't think you can cut the human element out yet.
No. Right.
I think the operators who have centralized application processing, I think that's a really good thing. If you can manage to do that, because then you can have maybe a few people process applications, kind of know to look for these things. But there's so many things I would train on, like that that is still and the software is evolving to catch some of this. Applicants will submit bank statements or pay stubs sometimes without their name on them. They
Right.
literally have a different
Sure.
name.
Yeah.
And folks out there in the world will approve these,
Yeah.
not even look at the name. They're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
so and so
Right.
gave, there's a rush, they're in a hurry, they're not even looking at the name.
Right.
So they'll do that. And I've always been big on training on just like sort of little red flags. Like here are some red flags you can kind of look for. Like if something looks a little suspicious, for folks who are usually using a CPN number, typically, more often than not, it'll come up on a credit report as
Yeah.
no trade lines, just no, you know, just zero trade lines. So it'll come up with an alert. But a lot of management companies, landlords will let applicants in with no trade lines. They
Yeah.
just don't have any credit
Sure.
yet, right? So you're
Right.
like, okay, well, got to give this person a shot. Maybe I'll charge a little bit higher deposit,
Yeah.
higher bond premium, but like they need a place to live.
Yeah.
They're probably not, trying to defraud me. So they'll let them in often based on their screening model.
Right.
But there's some red flags you can look for there, and you can try to make it your consistent policy and say, if I get this SSN alert, no trade lines, I'm going to ask for a social security card. I'm going to bring it in the office and I'll examine it. But then again, some of these companies are not producing that. So
I mean,
it makes
yeah,
it hard.
it starts to get to a fine line where you're talking about some solutions in fair housing, right? Where it's just like you can't just, preemptively think of somebody and, get the red flag and just be like, well, I'm just going to do it to you because it just had a
It's
hunch.
got to be
You
consistent.
have to
right?
create a consistent policy that's going to go across your entire portfolio.
Right.
And so that's why I think like that involves people at the corporate office and especially your marketers, because it sounds like where it's starting is getting that leverage through the social media channels. And it also gives the perception to the people that participate in these programs that they're right. I do deserve for me to have a house. I do
Sure.
deserve for me to have, these things that they're talking about. And so it's like, it's really important that when marketers are positioning their properties, they're positioning in a way where they come across as an ally, that they come across as somebody that understands, yes, times are hard. People already see us as the big bad landlords,
Yeah.
but they don't understand why the price is the price. They don't understand why the structure is the structure. And they also don't understand how they can communicate and be able to say, well, this is, what's going on and how can we work together as a community because we're all wanting, the city of Charlotte and our different locations to be better. It's not like we don't want people to be
Right.
housed.
Right, because a landlord and operator might catch some of this stuff, and but they're just going to go somewhere else. Yeah, it's just
Correct.
going to go somewhere else. So
And in
You know,
in the list
yeah,
that is mentioned on TikTok where it's like, well, this is the properties that you can
Oh,
get
sure.
away with it, and these
Yeah.
are the ones that you can't.
Part of the
Yeah.
service is to
Yeah.
steer you away from the people
Yeah.
they know have they've been caught by.
Most
Right.
definitely.
Like I would train on things like looking for like an offer letter might have a different address than the address in the credit report or an address the applicant keyed in when they applied. So like, do the addresses match? Where are all the addresses? So there's a lot. Offer letters are kind of another tricky layer, but they're going to go somewhere else and they're going to get in.
I
You know?
definitely had that happen to me once. I had an offer letter and she was just like, this offer letter doesn't look real. And I was like, it's a startup company. Like I promise you, it is
Yeah.
a legit, like it is a
Right.
real offer letter. And, they had to call like so many different people in order for them to know that it was the real thing. And sometimes like those processes can even deter good people, and it's like, you don't want to do that. You want to find a way to be able to implement some of these solutions portfolio wide and make sure that you're being proactive. And I think one of the greatest things that you can do is, making sure that you're partnering with your supplier partners to make, I won't say the application process lengthy, but make sure that it solves as a deterrent. When you're going on tour, let people know, hey, like we actually verify and we verify through these different ways in order for you to be able to, apply and, be a member of, our property, right? Because we don't want just what we don't want is we don't want to seem like we're moving in a unfair or unjust way, right? We want people to understand that we want you to apply, we want you to be housed, but we also don't want you to participate in this negative system. And so there has to be a way to find the balance, especially where you're not burning your people out.
Most honest applicants don't have any idea that this is going on.
That's right.
Yeah,
They have no
yeah.
idea, so they're just thinking, "Oh, this is an extraordinarily difficult."
Mhm.
And I've served on Snap's customer advisory board the last 5 years, and it's been kind of an amazing thing to do. And in light of all of this, right, to be able to see kind of how they're tackling it and talk to a lot of other operators from around the country who are kind of dealing with the same thing.
Right.
And that's a lot of what we've talked about. Like,
Yeah.
we continue to advise this supplier on how to advance their platform and continue to
Mhm.
keep up with all the evolving, types of fraud, but still
Mhm.
make it where it's not overly burdensome for applicants. And,
Yeah.
and it's a hard thing. And I
It
think they've
is.
done a nice job, as some others have as well, of just marketing the fact that, to your all your applicants,
Mhm.
here's why we're doing this. This is for you.
Mhm.
We know who's around you.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just and I think when you market it properly so that they
Yeah.
understand. I mean,
Yeah.
I think consumers in general have gotten, I think, to where they understand fraud better now than they did in like 21 when this was
Correct.
starting.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you sort of present it and say, like, this is potentially an issue in our industry as well, like all the spam texts that you get asking for you, from your employer to ask you about credit
It is
cards.
bananas.
I mean, the spam calls that all of us get, the email phishing. I mean, it is like insane.
Right. Right.
So, I think people have started to say, okay, well, now I'm not super surprised because I kind of
Mhm.
see all of
Mhm.
this day to day. So I think as long
Mhm.
as I think it's just making sure that the general public applicants for rental properties know,
Mhm.
like, this is also affecting our industry,
Mhm.
right? And this is why we're asking you to do X, Y, or Z. But we've been able to, thankfully, evolve that product at least to like integrate super well and be as sort of behind the scenes as possible. They acquired a company actually last year called Triga that does rental verifications.
Mhm.
Because a lot of operators have said, we don't do rental verifications anymore.
Mhm.
A lot of times it's because a lot of their, management companies that are managing their comps don't do them. So they're like, they're not
Mhm.
able to do it consistent, like you
Mhm.
were saying,
Mhm.
because, if you have one applicant who's moving from this property managed by X management
Right. Right.
company,
Right.
another moving from Y. Well, X
Mhm.
management company does rental verifications, Y
And the other
doesn't.
one
Well,
doesn't. Right.
I mean, how are you going to? I mean, you got to treat them the
Mhm.
same, but
Mhm.
their landlord just simply doesn't release information.
Correct.
So I mean,
Correct.
so what this platform does is it sort of does these autonomous AI calls,
Mhm.
and it allows the person on the other end verifying to just sort of deliver information like through the keypad, and
Okay.
it'll email something to them, but it kind of all happens autonomously. So no one at the property level has to do it, which I think is good because I think the goal really with all of this is to remove the on-site teams as much as possible from the application process, because you don't want for someone, in a leasing role to
Mhm.
look at an application and be like, I just know for sure that this is
You
rather than
definitely don't
making a
want to
judgment call,
stereotype
right?
people. That is
No,
for
you don't.
sure, because that
No,
is just a lawsuit
no.
waiting to happen, especially now where people are, I don't know if you've seen this, Jay and Bill, where people are like, oh, so these are the best places to move to in Charlotte.
Right.
And they're literally showing you like what their touring experience is. And the
Yes.
last thing that you want is for somebody to catch you stereotyping them,
Right.
while they're looking
Right.
for an apartment.
Right.
And it's just like, oh, well, you did that because I'm enter X,
Right.
and it's like now you have an even bigger problem on your hands. So the best thing is for you to do, like we said before, is implement these policies portfolio wide. Make sure that owner operators are communicating with each other. And what I love what you did, Jay, is you were just like, hey, I have this problem. Do you have this problem? And if you do, like, how are you solving it? And that allows for the majority of us to be able to get on the same page. So we're not all caught up in this system where we really have this high risk where it's like a PR risk, it's a brand reputation risk, it's an occupancy risk, it's an eviction risk. There's so many different elements that can really cause issues for you and your property and your portfolio if you're not careful.
Oh,
So just
100%.
find the sources and the supplier partners that are willing to assist you. So that way, like you said, you don't burn out your leasing teams and put them in these really uncomfortable positions where they have to make a decision on if the applicant goes through or if the application goes through or if it doesn't. It's just kind of like automated and they can just focus on giving them
Yeah,
a
we don't
high
we
quality
don't
leasing
train them.
experience.
You don't expect them to be forensic.
No.
I know. I
Nope.
know.
And also, they're the salesperson. They're the front
Yeah.
line.
They are.
Like that person.
Yeah.
This isn't about feelings.
They're
It's
to
about
close
facts.
the deal. They're
Sure,
Yeah.
they
motivated
are.
to lease the apartment. They're getting paid to lease the
Yeah.
apartments.
Right. Now you have to
Here are
figure
all
out
the things that could be.
what's your TikTok handle.
Yeah,
So-
and there's a wide variety of income proof, and it's gotten broader,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
So you got gig economy workers who are getting paid by Zelle,
Yes.
Shopify,
Yes.
Venmo, and then you got folks. I mean, you got folks who are providing, your
Consultation
international
services.
students, people who are making Social Security, disability revenues. So you have people who are self-employed who are getting, income qualified by a tax return.
Mhm.
So you have to be able to
And
Please
maybe
speak.
that's why some of it kind of like popped up during the pandemic,
Yeah,
because we also have to
sure.
remember the gig economy was
Right.
huge
Right.
during that time. And you have a lot of people that are just like, hey, I'm just looking for a side job in order for me to be able to do what I need to do. And I get
True.
paid via Zelle, Vimo, or whatever else. And
Mhm.
it looks suspicious. I just
Yeah.
keep thinking of that little gif where they're like, don't be suspicious of all
Yeah.
these
Right.
things.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all I
So
can think
you,
of.
you you have to just kind of be suspicious of all of them. You have to be prudent, when you're looking
Mhm.
at every
So
application.
if you're watching this episode and you are worried about, are you potentially a victim of the system? Like, what's the first steps? Is it seeking out a forensic specialist? I mean, really? I mean, or
Yeah.
a fraud expert? Like, what's
Mhm.
the first steps? Is it software? Is it consultation? Are
Mhm.
there professionals that they can go to get the conversation
I
started?
mean, I think it depends on the business model. There are ways to outsource your application approval process.
Mhm.
There's services
Mhm.
that do it 100%, like soup to nuts. So you can outsource it. There are companies that do that, and
This is what they're paid to do.
that's what they're paid to do.
Yeah.
I've
Right.
heard pretty good feedback on a little bit pricier.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you want to take some of your overhead, personnel overhead to kind of throw it at that. So you have folks
Hmm.
who are just exclusively that's what they do.
Right.
So you outsource that completely. I think, like a pilot case of centralizing application
Hmm.
workflows is really good. So if you have
Mhm.
like one person who is super strong,
Mm.
maybe they've been working at a property, their assistant manager, and they're willing to take on, 3, 4, 5 properties and say like process all the applications for these. I think that's a good way to go about it.
Hmm.
If your business model supports that,
Hmm.
Right.
I think that's good because then that kind of frees up your staff to do less sort of administrative heavy
Sure.
stuff. But I
Right.
think it's a combination of it has to be a combination of the technology and also just training.
Mhm.
Regardless of whether you're doing it centrally or a pilot of trying it centrally or you're
Mhm.
doing it the site level.
Mhm.
Leasing teams are doing it. You have to remove a lot of that guesswork, like Liz
Yeah.
said.
Mhm.
Like
Hmm.
you can't have them guessing looking at it, they have to have some technology, some tools to be
Yeah.
able to tell applicants now. A lot of them are bank linking, so they're using like a Plaid Argyle type,
Oh,
setup.
yeah, plaid.
Where,
Mm,
you can
mhm.
bank link and you can see the
Mhm.
deposits. Not
Mhm.
foolproof for inception fraud
Right, right, right.
necessarily, but
It is a really
hopefully.
good, like, deterrent, though,
Mhm.
and for the marketers, some of the solutions that I have, sorry, y'all, I'm a writer, like, I like to write down
You're
my
good.
Yeah.
solutions, but re-engineer, the leasing funnel, so you really wanna own some of that verification messaging. You wanna make sure that, you have just kind of the same thing where it's like, "We're a free, equal opportunity," like, all of the fair housing, things that everything it is that you have, you wanna make sure that people see that,
Yeah.
throughout the digital space, the application space, and also on site. So that way people know that you mean business when you're talking about verifying and making sure that people are exactly who they say they are. Really look at the schedule a tour workflow, because that will really determine like where fraud can really insert itself. Is it when they are online and they're looking at and they're pulling information and, like you said, metadata to
Mhm.
be able to create a fraud application? Are they looking at you on social media to see if you can be easily targeted? That's one way. Launch a proactive like social listening tool. I am a huge advocate for this. It is so simple for you to go on Instagram, Facebook, Meta Business, Google Alerts, and create an alert. So if somebody is saying, especially on platforms like Reddit, where it's like, hey, this is a property that can easily be targeted or you can easily navigate through, the moment someone mentions you, you're able to be pinged. Have a brand council that will be able to review some of that information to see what it is that you're saying about your property, because it's going to be beneficial to your brand reputation anyway. You don't want to be known as the property where people can easily, access and, participate in application fraud. And I mentioned this earlier, but have those verifying messages, badge, and links on social. Have it on your social media platforms. Make sure that at least once a quarter or every other, sixth post that you're mentioning something about verification and that we're a safe, place. Of course, you want to contact a competent attorney to review the copy to make sure that it's true, but you really want to make sure that you're utilizing this type of verbiage to deter, but also to secure the fact that you're a safe property, you're a safe organization, and you're doing the best it is that you can for your residents.
Yeah. I think folks more and more appreciate that, right?
They do.
I know I would.
Yeah.
I know I would. I most definitely would.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they do. And it's, yeah, I think I think those are good places to start. It's really, I think now there are a lot of operators out there who are doing a good job of catching
They
the
are.
right mix of sort of training and technology.
Mhm.
I think they're doing a pretty good job of
Mhm.
catching this stuff. And because we know there's an underground market,
Mhm.
it's the quicker your property gets out there is, hey, they can't, no one can get in here,
Right.
the better off you'll be.
It's a part of the risk of doing the business, and we all know that. But the best thing it is that we can do is, listen to YouTube sessions
Yeah.
and, podcast sessions like this with Bill and,
Yes.
me
Yeah.
and you, Jay, and
Yeah.
kind of have that running checklist of, well, what is it that we can do in the now? And even if it's something that you're doing already, at least if you're having the conversation like you did, where you were mentioning you had a conversation with Ellie,
Mhm.
hopefully it'll trigger some ideas, and there's nothing wrong with searching and researching and putting in a group of people that can help you navigate this. And this is literally all they do.
Yeah.
I would
Mhm.
highly advise, having a
Yeah.
department where they're connected with,
Yeah.
the operators, the marketing team, and they're centralizing this message.
Yeah, I think from a centralization has been talked about for a few years now, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm centralizing, the
Mm-hmm.
leasing
Mhm.
process, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
centralizing collections." Right? But I think, in my opinion, centralizing this is the most important
Yeah.
piece. It's the biggest value add,
For
the
sure.
best ROI that you can do, because as the technology evolves, and it's evolved tremendously to where it is now, it's phenomenal. And if you have that layered on, then I think over the next months and years, we'll see those centralized teams be able to take on, just be able to complete these applications, process them faster and faster and faster.
Correct.
So you're able
Mhm.
to, I think, see this really strong upward trajectory, so they
Mm-hmm.
can really justify
And
their positions,
And 9
right?
times out of 10, they're already on your team.
Yeah.
Right.
9 times out of 10, like,
Right.
they probably are the forensics person and
Right.
they're like, "Oh, I love doing that."
Yeah, they
Sign
do.
me up for that
People,
all
the
day
people
long.
who do it, who I've met, absolutely love it.
Correct.
They absolutely, that's what they want to be doing. They love
Mhm.
the administrative work. They
Mhm.
love
Mhm.
just putting on their detective hat. And again, a lot of that's cut out of it now. There's still
Mhm.
certain little nuances you have to look at, like I was
Right.
saying, with the addresses and the CPN number,
Right.
red flags,
Right.
and these certain things. But if you can get really good at using the technology and
Mhm.
a good workflow,
Mhm.
I mean, for you to be able to catch those one-offs, I mean, you could save 50 grand not
Mhm.
having to, evict somebody off of
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
So, like,
Mhm.
think about the ROI, of that, not to mention, you're freeing up folks on site, right,
Correct.
to do
For
things that
them
are
to do
more
what it is that they love to do,
right.
which is interacting with the people. We don't want the people to be the enemy in this process where it's
Right.
just like you're kind of scared
Mhm.
or nervous about everybody that comes in, to fill out an application. But it does allow for a group of people to kind of like serve as a council and be like, hey, so this is what it is that you should be looking for. These are the little things that can be little red flags. Maybe
Mhm.
they have a hotline where it's like, hey, so I have something going on. I went ahead and I did what it is that I needed to do. Of course, we want to mind our fair housing laws, like I mentioned before. But I'm a little, a little concerned about this one. Like my gut
Yeah.
is just kind of pulling at me here.
Mhm.
And it allows for them to say, okay, no, not a problem. We'll connect with our legal counsel. We'll see what it is that we can do. So that way we're within the parameters of the law, but also protect our property and our other residents at the same time. And I think if you have a group of people that are interested in that, it requires a legal team, someone in tech, someone in marketing, and someone who at least has some sort of AI, understanding to create that agent
Mhm.
to be able to plug in, and someone who has or is really connected with your technology, partners and vendors
Mhm.
for
Yeah,
sure.
and it
You
could become harder and harder to detect, right?
Yeah.
As AI
Yeah.
advances, we're using it to detect it. They're going to be using it
You
to fraud us even
right,
more.
to get around it.
It's gonna continue to evolve,
Yeah.
and it's kind of sad, but I do think that's all the more reason to have
All the more
It is.
reason
the
to. For
the,
sure.
the
For
tech
sure.
in place, and
Mhm.
and be ready to understand, because then yeah, inevitably it's gonna just be something else next.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Well, you two are smart. I'm not so smart, but I do think it's a fantastic topic that's
Yeah.
timely and we need
Yeah.
to get to the bottom of.
Mhm.
But the podcast wouldn't be complete unless I landed the plane weird.
Okay.
Liz, we're
Yes.
friends. I
Yes.
mean, Jay and I are friends, but we're friends.
Yes.
You know I got
Yes.
to be weird on the way out. Good?
Yeah.
All right, here's what we're
Yeah.
going to do. I'm going to give you, look, so we have these things, and as we evolve this episode, you'll see them visually so that you can have cues. But
Mhm.
I'm going to give you 3 topics,
Okay.
and you're going to pick the one you like best,
Okay.
and we're going to close out.
Okay.
The topics are perk or pass, spill the beans, or the final pour. and you have to pick one of those three. What sounds right to you?
I like the spill the beans
Okay.
for
All right.
whatever reason.
This is perfect. This is perfect for you.
Is it?
Yeah. Your face. Here it comes. You can permanently mute a single workplace sound. What sound are you picking?
So this is going to be really weird for me because in my office, the printer is directly outside of my door.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I work at a law firm, duh. And so the printer is running all day long. So I have to put on like the Devil Wears Prada or King of the Hill on like a little like iPad that I have on my desk just to drown it out.
So you don't go inside?
I will literally go insane. I have literally heard like the printer in my dreams.
Yeah.
Like I am I hear that printer all day long. So yeah, if
That's
I was
it.
going to mute anything, because
Okay.
I've turned the lights off and so I don't have to hear the light bulbs.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I can't do nothing about the printer.
I'm going to give you the headers again. You ready? Perk or pass? Spill the beans. The final pour.
Final pour. I don't know what that would be. Perk or pass sounds interesting. Let's do that. Let's do something different.
I was curious
You want
about that
perk or
one.
pass?
That was my
Something different
next
than Elizabeth.
guess. Yeah.
Okay. You ready?
Ready.
A 4-day work week, but each day is 12 hours long.
Ooh.
Do you take it?
That's a really tough one.
That's tough.
I think. So I perk if I take it, right? I pass if I don't.
Right.
So I perk with the caveat that it with kids,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I don't, you wouldn't see your kids, you know.
Yeah,
So that's the only reason. Otherwise, yes, because I'm a night owl. I do like to work at night.
Same.
Late. Like
Same.
to stay up late. So I think I could do it. I think it's European concept. They 4-hour work, 4-hour, or 4-day. I remember when I was studying in college in Germany, 4-day work, 4-day school week.
Yeah.
So I really loved it because then I could go somewhere Thursday and travel, have a nice long weekend.
But I love that you think about the kids. I love that.
I was like, you're thinking about your baby.
Yeah,
you
but I
know?
wouldn't want to miss, things during the week.
evenings. Yeah.
I'd work 12 hours.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
so
evening
you're passive.
routine.
I pass at current state. Outside of that 18-year span, I would perk.
Yeah.
You'll pass for now, perk later.
That's right. Pass
Yeah.
perk later.
All right. So the other thing I've got for you, and you got to help me because I'm on a box. I can't get up. I got a laptop and a box and a mic.
Yes.
There are in the bowls, there are for the guests now, which means a lot of guests never got one. And now they're all crying about it as they're finding out about this new have a bean.
Okay.
It's like a lapel pin. You see it?
Oh,
See the gold backing on it?
I do. I love
So
it.
you can wear them out in the public. Didn't we talk about this last time at the board meeting? You saw it come in the room?
It's
Pat
like
Finn had
hidden.
one.
That's so
It
neat.
scored instantly.
I love that.
Look at that.
That's so cute.
You can show it to
That
people.
is
That means
awesome.
you were here.
I was here.
Means
And
I
they
was
weren't.
here.
I was present.
Right.
And they
You know,
Yeah.
I'm exclusive.
Yeah.
My exclusive.
I want to thank
So-
one more time because it's evolving into this great space and it's going to evolve even more. I want to thank our sponsor, Valley Living,
Most definitely.
and share their tagline one more time. It starts at the door. So thank you to Valley Living one more time. Thank you for being on the Morning Perks podcast. Liz Newkirk, Jay Rawls, very
Sir.
timely information. Thank you so much.
Yes,
No,
sir.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Bill.
GCAA. We appreciate it. Great job, Bill.
It's good to be here.
You good? Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Morning Perks podcast. Our podcast airs the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 7 a.m. Keep up with all things GCAA by following our Facebook and Instagram pages. Download the GCAA app in your app store to maximize your membership experience. There you can easily learn about and register for upcoming events, sponsorships, and educational opportunities. Thank you for listening to Morning Perks and have a fantastic day.